Tributes continue to pour in for the late Pope Francis after the Vatican confirmed his death. The Pontiff was 88 years old and had recently survived a series of ill health characterized by a serious bout of double pneumonia. Now, his death comes after he appeared at the Vatican St. Peter's Square on Sunday to wish a happy Easter to thousands of worshippers. Pope Francis, who is the first Pontiff of the Americas, was born on the 17th of December 1936 as Jorge Bergoglio in Buenos Aires in Argentina. Now, he's been hailed as a simple pastor who cared about his congregation. He was elected Supreme Pontiff on the 13th of March in 2013. But to help us look at the legacy of Pope Francis and what happens next, we're joined virtually now by a parish priest of Holy Trinity Catholic Church, Father Russell Pollitt. Father Pollitt, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you. Good morning, Sakina, and to your viewers.
Father Pollitt, as the rest of the world, continues to react to the passing of the Pope, I wish to, gauge your reflection on his passing and, of course, his legacy as well at this stage.
Yeah, I think that for many of us it's a shock, although we were expecting this because the Pope has not been well, as you pointed out. But, I think he is someone who really taught us about humanity. And the two things I think that really stand out for me are mercy and inclusion. This was part of his, right from the beginning, from his motto, God of mercy. And I think Francis really tried to live that mercy, if one just thinks of the many people that he came into contact with. And the other thing is inclusion, Francis was someone who wanted not to buy into the exclusionary way that so many times we operate in the world. And he wanted people who in any way felt excluded to be included. And I think his outreach was often about that inclusion. If one thinks of the very peripheries that he went to, migrants and refugees, if you think of, for example, divorced and remarried people, the LGBTI community, the elderly who so often are forgotten and put aside in society. He was really a pope of inclusion and preached a very inclusive message that often was against perhaps the political messages that were being heard around the world.
And Father Pollitt, while well received by some, others not so welcoming of that, because some felt that perhaps he wanted to change the church and its trajectory. Your thoughts on that?
It's going to be an interesting debate, I think, that we're going to have. I think that Pope Francis did challenge the church internally in as much as he challenged the world. Right from the beginning, he said, I want my priests, the shepherds, to smell like their sheep. I think he brought a humanity to the papacy where he, I don't think, dispensed with tradition, but rather he made the tradition a really living experience for people, that he was willing to bridge perhaps the gap between the tradition of the church and the church's teaching and the lived experience of people. If one looks back, he didn't really change anything in terms of doctrine of the church, but I think the way he lived that doctrine was different and sometimes was quite stark for the members of the church and other leaders in the church, because he really challenged us to live amongst the people and to suffer with the people and to offer people a hope in their suffering, that the church is not just some thing up there, but the church is something that really lives among the often most deserted in the world.
And then it takes us to the next question of how that legacy of Pope Francis is likely to shape the expectations of whoever will succeed him.
Yes, I think it's going to be big shoes to fill in some ways. I think each pope comes with his own gifts. I think Pope Benedict, for example, was a great theologian, probably the best theologian the church had in the last 100 years. Pope Francis comes with a different, he was a real pastoral man. He had a great love for people. Benedict had a love for theology and a love for ideas. Francis had a love for people, and he had a love for being amongst people. And so I think his humanity almost, and I'm not saying that Pope Benedict or Pope John Paul II were not human, but I think Pope Francis had a humanity and a humility that he brought to the papacy that whoever follows after him, I would hope, would also be human. For example, the whole way through his illness, he's been quite candid with the world and told the Vatican officials and the doctors, tell people what's going on. Don't hide anything from them. So I think there was a humanity there. And I think his willingness to take risks is going to be something maybe the next pope will have to think about. His risks in speaking out. For example, what's happening in the Middle East. The Pope has many times spoken about his closeness to the Jewish people and to the Palestinian people, but has been very, very critical of the regime in Israel, and has become increasingly critical of that, where other world leaders were not willing to do that. And I think the migration issue is another big one. Just recently, he issued a very strong letter to the bishops of the United States, calling for them to challenge some of the new administration's policies on migration. The next pope, I think, is going to have to think about how he might also play on the global stage and be that moral voice where there seems to be at the moment in the context of the world a vacuum in a moral voice.
And then speaking of Father Pollitt, the death of Pope Francis now triggered a mourning period which involves some centuries-old rites. But, what are the official steps taken by the Vatican immediately after the passing of the Pope?
So the Camerlengo, so that's the cardinal who is Kevin Farrell, who's in charge of the papal household. He would be the first person to declare that the Pope is dead. He would oversee the body of the Pope being put into a coffin, being prepared for lying in state in St. Peter's Basilica. Once that body has been lying in state for people to go and pay their last respects, the cardinals will meet together and decide on a day for the funeral. There's already some rumors coming out of Rome from the Italian press that the funeral will be on Saturday, because the Pope should be buried within 4 to 6 days of his death. And then the cardinals will come together to prepare for a conclave, which needs to take place between 15 and 20 days after the Pope's death. The cardinals will meet together. They will have a series of meetings where they will discuss the needs of the church at this time, perhaps the challenges of the church, the position of the church in the world. They will try in a way to build a profile of the leader that the church needs now. And then they will move into the formal conclave where they will vote. The cardinals that are eligible to vote will go into the conclave, and they will vote for a new pope. They'll be cut off from the world. There'll be no media. They are not allowed in any way to communicate with anybody outside. Cell phones will be removed until they have finally elected a pope from among them.
And who is eligible to vote, Father Pollitt?
So every cardinal who's under the age of 80 years old, and I think they're about, if my memory serves me correct, about 163, 165. There's about 225 cardinals at the moment, but only those under the age of 80 are eligible to vote in the conclave. And so those cardinals who are from all over the world will go to Rome to vote for a new pope. The other cardinals who are over the age of 80 can participate in the pre-meetings, but they will not be part of the actual conclave itself. So, for example, here in South Africa, our own Archbishop of Johannesburg, Cardinal Brislett, will be traveling to Rome as part of the conclave. He will be one of the electors of the new Pope, but the retired Cardinal Wilfred Napier, he won't be part of that election in the conclave.
And in the absence now of the Pope, who runs the church during this period? And, you know, when there's urgent church business to be conducted, who would be in charge of that?
So in terms of the administration of the church at the moment, the Carmelingo, Father Cardinal Kevin Farrell, he would be the one that really oversees the administration of the church. And then the Dean of the College of Cardinals, Cardinal Ray, he would convene those meetings of the cardinals, he would chair those meetings, and he would make sure that the conclave goes according to how the procedures are put down. But really for the administration of the church at the moment, it is Cardinal Farrell, and he has limited power, but he really takes over. We call this a time of sede vacante, where literally the chair is open, the chair of St. Peter is open. And certain, like for example, they cannot appoint bishops at the moment where they are needed around the world. This is reserved for the Pope alone. So he will continue with the ordinary business in as far as he can, but there are certain things that he won't be able to do.